All right, cool, man. So, what did you want to talk about?
Well, okay, so I just watched the what's it called? You and Larkin discussing, like spirit and objective morality and that type of stuff, which I love discussing with people because it just feels like it's almost like a dying thing. And basically, my main area of study that I found interesting after understanding that they've been lying to us since I was a child is the ancient world, right? And I feel this is why, like, one of the reasons I like to work with the occult people, because it's like when you understand that these ancient people had much higher technology than we did. Like, again, would you argue that the Egyptians weren't smarter than us? Like, we don't know how to build half of the shit that they did now, you know?
What?
So what's that?
What do you mean we don't know how to build half the shit they did?
Well, take the pyramids, right? Like we don't have the technology to build those now. Like we wouldn't be able to build those now with the precision. Yeah, it's well known.
Dude, we have a Bass Pro Shop that's a pyramid. Like, what are you talking about? We don't have the technology. You don't think if we wanted to build a pyramid, we could do that?
No, we could. No, what I'm saying is we could build pyramidal structures, but not with the precision and the alignment that these people did in the ancient world. Like, for example, the Great Pyramid of Giza is so mathematically precise. It's within like a half of a centimeter of true north. Like, we don't have the technology to do that now. Not with the megalithic stones and stuff. Absolutely not.
What? Dude, come on. I bet we could even, I bet we could go way farther than that. I bet we could design robots that would build it for us with precision GPS coordinates. Dude, the current generation of like microprocessors in your computers is like 10 nanometers. Tell me we can't put some rocks. Tell me we can't put some big rocks in a measured line. Come on, dude. Come on.
My man, big rocks. Some of those stones were like 40 tons. You know what I mean? Like, no, man. Like, why haven't we done anything even that remotely isn't halfway as impressive as those things? You know, we haven't. But the Eiffel Tower, like, that's not nearly as impressive as the pyramids of Giza or any of the ancient structures in the ancient world. You know, like, take for example, do you ever see the video I did on the Great Pyramid of Giza? It's like kind of amusing and stuff, but at the same time, like, I pointed out some really interesting anomalies. Like, for example, the Great Pyramid of Giza has a door and a hinge. It's like, I think it's like 40,000 pounds or something like that, and it's so mathematically precise that a little girl could push it open. You know, like, who figured this out in the ancient world? You see what I'm saying? Like, so basically the reason I'm discussing this is what I'm trying to say is these people were obsessed with spirit and basically because they would bring their spirits to like greater heights, they would create they would come up with greater things, you know what I'm saying? And it's kind of lost to us in the modern world, like our cities and stuff. For example, if we were to leave our cities, right, untouched for like 20 years, I don't know if you ever played The Last of Us, but that's a great example of how, the skyscrapers are all starting to collapse and stuff like that. Bro, those pyramids are easily over 100,000 years old, you know what I mean? And they're still sitting out there baking in the desert doing great, you know? So, like,
okay, just because a building collapsed, hold on, just because a building collapsed in a video game doesn't mean it would collapse in real life.
No,
you recognize that, right?
Well, yeah, right. But it's based on real stuff about how if we were to, let's say, leave our cities untended for 20, 30 years, they would fall apart. Like they aren't built the same way with the same precision and the same like alignments and stuff like that. That's been lost to history. And actually, every ancient culture, like the Romans and the Greeks and stuff, they all tried to emulate and build on top of these things, but weren't able to do it with the absolute immaculate precision these ancient builders were able to do. This is actually where like Freemasonry comes from.
Dude, it is precisely the opposite of what you're saying. Like, we're building much more complicated, difficult structures that require much more precision and material engineering and structural engineering than a pyramid. Like what? Like a pyramid is like one of the most stable shapes you can build with. So it's like it's playing on easy mode is what I'm saying. You want to play on hard mode, try building, a 100-story skyscraper. Like that's a tiny square that just goes up into a tall rectangle. That's way more difficult than a pyramid. So I'm arguing that it's exactly the opposite of what you're suggesting. We're far more advanced today.
So what I would ask then is that, like, what about the skyscraper is more advanced than the pyramid exactly? What about it? Can you be specific?
Only everything. Everything like from the materials that go into it to the architecture that goes into it to the everything.
So let me ask you, why do you think they built those structures out of stone?
Because they didn't have steel?
Well, actually, they found all sorts of. They actually did have all sorts of. Maybe not steel specifically, but they had other materials. But the reason they didn't use this stuff is because stone is essentially eternal. It doesn't break. Like, I'd much rather live in a stone house than, say, a steel house if I was planning on living there for a really long time. Just because stone doesn't break. You see what? So that's why they would use these ancient structures. And again, these ancient structures are all in perfect alignment with the stars and stuff. Like, how have they figured this stuff out? You know what I mean?
So, if I could explain to you how they aligned buildings to the stars, I mean, what would that do for this conversation? I don't even know what you're wanting to talk to me about. Like, did you really want to debate ancient architecture with me? I'm not an expert on that. I don't know.
Okay. Let me explain. There's a reason I have to be prerequisite to what I'm talking about. So, okay, like, in other words, the ancient people were like, they were privy to knowledge that's been lost. Like, an example would be Greek fire. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you know how it's been lost to history? Like, we don't know how to do what they used to do in ancient Greece. Like, it's just lost. Like, someone figured it out, it got forgotten about, and nobody's figured it out since then.
You're talking about the weapon that was very much like a hand cannon from, like, the Byzantine Empire, right?
What I'm talking about is how they would basically light the entire top of the ocean on fire. Like, that's the thing. That's been lost to history. We don't have that well, if you want to call it technology or whatever. We no longer have that, is what I'm saying.
It was based on naphtha. It was based on naphtha and quicklime. So apparently we do know how it was created.
Well, according to a bunch of stuff that I read about, is that we no longer have it, and it's no longer used in combat, and it seems like it would be pretty useful for war these days. Like, wouldn't you think? Like, wouldn't you want that on your side to just light the entire ocean on fire? But they don't. You know what I mean? So, like, again, like, I'm just pointing out that, like, there was ancient stuff that people at greater heights of spirit were able to achieve that we no longer have. So
we have gunpowder now. Like, we have napalm now. You don't think we can set the surface of water on fire now?
Well, it's, not according to a bunch of stuff that I looked into, is that it's been lost to history. No, I don't think we can.
Dude, there was like oil spills. There's like oil spills that have caught on fire and set whole, like...
No, yeah, it's an oil spill, and that happens, but I'm talking about it being weaponized. Like, they weren't using oil to do it. It wasn't the same thing. It was like a weapon that they would destroy all their enemies with. Like, I think that's why they, like, reigned for a long time or something like that. But just so you understand why I'm bringing this stuff up is that, see, like, in order to understand, like, these people were literally obsessed with spirit. Like, take the ancient Egyptians, right? These people, the United States is about to collapse, right? I think the average government lives for about 250 years or something along those lines, right? So we're, like, on the verge of this now, right? 250 years. The ancient Egyptians literally put their greatest minds to the mystery of death and these things for 6,000 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, these people, just based on the fact that they lasted so much longer than us, I would suggest that they were at higher levels of consciousness than we are now. If not, why are we just keep all of our lives just all of our governments and stuff keep destroying one another? You see what I'm saying?
No, I don't see what you're saying. This seems like a fetishization of ancient culture. Like, they were far less advanced than in pretty much every way imaginable than we are today. Everything from lifespan, quality of life, and every metric of technology is way less advanced than today. I don't understand, like, even if that weren't the case, I still don't understand how that's a basis for an argument. And I don't even know what your conclusion is that you're arguing for. So, like, what are you arguing for? What are you wanting to debate me on? What's the topic?
The existence of spirit, my friend. I want to talk to you about that. The reason I'm bringing this stuff up is I was basically going to try to explain how these ancient people were literally obsessed with this stuff. I mean, absolutely obsessed with this type of stuff. So, and they had much greater achievements. Like, some of these ancient temples, like, I forget the names of some of them or whatever, but all over the place, like that, just carvings all over the place. Like, we like, again, how did they laser precision these things? You know, you can't fit a hair, a piece of paper, or a razor blade between the stones in, like, the Great Pyramids, and they didn't use any mortar either, and they're earthquake proof. Who did the math on that?
It's
every pyramid is earthquake proof.
It's heavy rocks in one of the most structurally sound shapes available. Why wouldn't heavy ass rocks in a structurally sound configuration be earthquake proof?
But brother, earthquakes destroy rock all the time, but they don't destroy those structures.
And this is evidence of the existence of spirits?
Well, I'm getting to that. But yes, what I'm saying is that people of a higher spirit, right? They're able to achieve greater heights in technology and stuff to the point that, like, we in the modern world don't really fully understand how they did that. And that's why there's all these cover-ups like, oh, slaves built the pyramids. Slaves definitely didn't build the pyramids. Like, so have you ever seen slave labor? It isn't precise within the centimeter of true north. They don't make the best stuff because they don't want to be doing it. Like, these ancient structures are of much higher. Like, if you ever want, I'd love to, like, spend a day with you and, like, walk you and show you all this stuff. I have so much interesting information. It's so great.
Okay, so I guess construct an argument for me because I don't know where we're going here.
Okay,
so I don't see any evidence for the existence of spirits. I would love to see some.
Okay. Well, okay. Like, let me ask you, what kind of evidence are you looking for? Like physical evidence of something that's non-physical?
The only evidence that can possibly exist is evidence that you can show me, or that I can see the effects of. If you can't show me something or something that I can see the effects of, then you by definition have no evidence.
Okay, so then how did they laser cut these stones that you can't even fit a hair in? We can't do that now. Oh, you want some pictures? I'll show you. There's all sorts of videos on YouTube of people explaining, like, and trying to, like, stick, like, blades and stuff in, and it's so perfectly precise. How did they do that? We don't know how they did that.
Man, I'm just doing, like, simple Google searches and finding answers to your questions. So here's one with the pyramids at Giza. This guy placed a rod called a gnomon by modern day surveyors on a wooden platform and marked the locations of the rod's shadow throughout the day. On the equinox, the surveyor will find that the tip of the shadow runs in a straight line nearly perfectly east to west. The degree of error is slightly counterclockwise, similar to the error found in the Great Pyramid, Red Pyramid, and the Khafre Pyramid. The tilt of the Earth on the fall of the equinox allows the shadow to run in this east-west direction. Anyway, so I guess I'm not going to read the whole article, but suffice it to say, you stick a fucking pole in the ground, and you use the shadows cast, and you can get some incredibly precise measurements.
To the point that they did it within a centimeter of true north, like that seems like awfully, like awfully good luck to have gotten that level of precision. You know what I'm saying? Like that's,
no.
How did they cut these stones if they didn't have high technology? I mean, they're so pristine. Like,
do you want me to Google that next? Am I just going to be like your Google bot? Like, how
do you believe that
did ancient Egyptians cut pyramid stones?
Just so you know, those stones that they used for the pyramids were also from hundreds of miles away. So I'd be curious how they were able to transport those.
To cut granite, workers cut a series of holes in the granite with a hammer and chisel and inserted wooden wedges. They soaked these with water, which made the wood expand and the rock split. The chisel was made of iron, whereas stone cutters could use bronze tools on softer rock like limestone. And then there's a long series of articles on it, but that's the summary.
But these people were supposedly, according to the time period, were using copper tools. You know what I mean? That's basically what they're trying to tell us for years. And the stone that they use is way harder than that. And I mean, just the level of magnitude of these things. Like, you really think that they just chiseled all these things out in perfect? I mean, just look at some of the photos of these pictures. I mean, it's nuts. That's what I mean.
It looks like they found proof that in terms of moving the giant stones, they found archaeological evidence that up to 172 men at a time were used to haul immense rocks statues using ropes attached to sledges.
Ropes that pull multiple.
A person can be seen standing on the front of the sledge pouring water over the sand. So water on the sand had something to do with making it easier.
Where did he get the water? Because it didn't exist at that time.
Anyway, my point is, I think,
okay, got it.
like, dude, Google this stuff if you want answers. Don't just like assert that we have no idea how they did this stuff. I mean, clearly a lot of people have figured out a lot of this stuff. And none of these solutions that I found in 5 seconds of Googling are magical or involve spirits. Like, it's just ancient ass technology.
Yeah, but again, it doesn't make any sense. Like I said, these stones were hundreds of miles away. You really believe that they dragged these stones from hundreds of miles away? How did they feed all of the people? How did they give them water and shelter and stuff like that in order to transport millions of these giant stones? The Great Pyramid of Giza is made of, like, I think, 2 million of these stones. How do they do that? You see what I'm saying? Like, Google's these answers. These are just answers that are trying to just give the public so they don't look into this stuff and find out the truth about them. That's
all right. Let's try this. Let's try this a different way. So it seems like your argument is I guess they use spirits to give them access to special technology that we can't figure out today to do this stuff.
No, I didn't say that they. No, I'm not trying to suggest they use like magical spirits. What I'm saying is that these people's internal spirit and also like it basically led them to a higher level of understanding that they were able to do this stuff. Like, take like someone like Leonardo da Vinci, right? This guy was way ahead of his time. He was into a lot of this stuff too. It opens up a part of you that, like I said, it gives you access to like greater knowledge. That's what I'm trying to get people to understand. Like, I know it might sound crazy to you, but like I'm fascinated with all this stuff. It's really interesting.
No, I just don't see any evidence for it. It doesn't sound crazy. It just sounds like.
Well, that's why I'm asking you, like, how do you think they transported all these stones? You think they're telling you the truth about that? I don't. That's why I'm bringing this up, because it's like, if you really take the time to look in and understand this stuff, there's no way what they're telling us is true. It just doesn't make any sense. And then when you look into the ancients and what they actually say about these things, like, that's what I'm like. Take, for example, right? Here's another example. The pyramids, right? If you go into ancient Egypt, right? There's millions of hieroglyphs. Yeah.
You asked me a question multiple times, the same question. You've asked me, well, how do you think they did this? I don't know.
Right.
And I don't have to know. And an answer to that question of how did they do it, if I can't answer that, is not, well, it could have been spirits. Like, you have to have evidence for that. Just like I would have to have evidence if I said that they used a team of 1,000 monkeys. Like, that could explain how they moved a bunch of rocks. But I would need evidence to prove that to you.
But that's why I'm asking you how these stones were cut with such absolute magnitude and laser precision that they were able to do this, because we can't do that now. We can't laser cut stone to the level that they were able to in the past. So that's why I'm suggesting that these people were on a higher level of consciousness and spirit than humanity is now, and that's how they were able to achieve these things. That's my point. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand.
Okay, and I'm trying to precisely contradict and rebut that argument that we can't cut things as precisely as they could when we can etch shapes into microprocessors at the 10 nanometer scale. And that's for consumer microprocessors. Like, the specialized stuff can go way smaller than that. We have quantum processors, which is, you can't get much smaller than this stuff. It's way smaller than they ever cut a stone, dude. Like, so I'm literally rebutting your argument with that, and you keep going back to it for some reason. I don't know why that's not getting through to you.
No, because the fact that we can make small stuff doesn't explain how these people thousands of years ago were able to do this type of stuff. Like, here, let me give you another example.
Nope. Let's not move the goalposts. You said they were able to do things that we cannot, and I just gave you a direct example of us doing something that they did way better than them.
But it's not the same thing. You're talking about something completely different. You're talking about computer processing. I'm talking about cutting laser stone. You know what I mean? In the ancient world where they supposedly never had any of this technology, according to Google. So I'm asking you, how were they able to do that? With mortar and chisel? Really? You believe that? Honestly? I don't.
I don't know. I'm fine telling you that I don't know how they did it with their lack of technology back then. I don't know.
Right.
I know that today we could use like diamond saws and stuff and do a much more precise job in all likelihood.
Well, believe it or not, based on what the mainstream says, according to what they want us to believe, that those stones were laid every 2.5 minutes. Now, do you believe that based on what they're telling us, they were able to lay those stones every 2.5 minutes? How were they able to do that? They were like, I think like...
I don't know anything about it.
Well, there you go. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand, is that because these people were at a higher level of awareness, that's how they did it. Because we are at a low.
Nope. I need you to prove that they were at some higher level of awareness that unlocked access to technology. I need evidence for that. And just saying, well, how did they do it is not evidence. That's a question.
Yeah, but you're coming from the point of view of like you're trying to debate me, where I'm trying to get you to understand something, you know? Like, I'm not trying to beat you, brother. I'm trying to get you to understand what I've come to understand, you know? I'm not trying to like win here, you know? That's like when you said like something about Mark wasn't looking to debate. I take that as a loss. You're trying to come at it from a too combative point of view. I'm not trying to beat you. I'm trying to get you to understand this, you know?
Okay, because I'm recording this, I have to correct the record, because I absolutely did not call Mark a wuss. I said it was a red flag that he'll lead so many people towards a philosophy that he's unwilling to defend. And whether or not he even wants to or intends to lead people, he is a leader. People follow him. And when I can prove that he's wrong and he refuses to engage with me to either teach me that I'm wrong or to correct his position so that the people following him can also have the benefit of that correction, that's a red flag. That's all I said.
No, right. You misheard me, though. I didn't say a wuss. I said a loss. You said like taking an L. So like I was.
Oh, a loss. Yeah. Okay. You're right. I heard wuss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
No, look, I'm not trying to be combative with the guy, but I do find it irresponsible. Like if I'm putting out philosophical ideas, well, I don't want to debate with you about Passio. He can. No, I don't know. Maybe he can stand up for himself if he wants, or not. I don't know. Whatever. But look. You called me because you wanted to talk about spiritual stuff, so that's what I'm happy to do that.
I'm not trying to. That's what you understand, though. Like, you're coming at this from a point of view where like you're trying to win and beat me, and I'm just trying to get you to understand. Oh, come on! Really? Well, either way, it doesn't even matter. So
no, I'm trying to find truth. I'm trying to find truth. So when you make a claim, I'm going to challenge that claim.
Well, that's rather than just challenge everything I say, why not look into it for yourself? Like, look into some of what I'm talking about and see it for yourself. Because if you just Google it, of course, it's just like all the conspiracies and stuff. They're just going to wipe it under the table. Oh, there's no truth to that. Sandy Hook, there's no truth to that. And I know you're smart enough to understand that they're lying about that. But so why wouldn't they lie about this stuff too? Because when you cut people off from their origins, they're so much more easy to control. That's how like the slave masters controlled. You know, like one white guy controlled a whole plantation of black people. Again, they could have easily rose up and destroyed like the one white guy, but they didn't, because they were dumbed down and they were stupid and they were controlled by these people. So I'm suggesting on a much grander scale is that the people in charge now are trying to cut us off from our origins. You know what I mean? And that's the point. When people don't understand what really happened in the ancient world, they're just more easily manipulated. So that's why I'm trying to get people to understand this stuff.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'd love to know how you believe that spirits exist. What method do you use to verify that spirits exist?
Well, when you say spirits, do you mean like you're talking about like ghosts and spirits, or spirit itself? Because I'm talking about like the life force that, and ether, or you know what I mean? Like, what basically animates life itself, that in the ancient world they called ether or aether, or like in Final Fantasy, that's what magic is or whatever, but that's what they called it, was ether. Basically in terms of density, I think it's like earth, then water, then air, then fire, and then above that is ether. Here's something else, actually, now that it just popped into my head, you might find interesting, right? In China, I forget where, it might be like the Zion temples, they have these lions, and underneath the lions, they have these tetrahedrons and stuff like that. Now, in order to understand and see these shapes, you would need high-powered microscopes. So again, like, I would ask you, like, how do these people know about this stuff? It's really interesting. And you see, I'm not telling you, like, you have to have an answer. I'm just trying to get you to think, like, hey, that is weird, you know?
I don't find it weird that humans managed to draw shapes. Like, I don't know what you're expecting me to find weird about that.
Well, like, again, these aren't just random shapes. These are like the building blocks of creation. Here's a better example. I made a video on this, right? So I don't know if did you ever see the video I did, Justin and Big Dick or whatever? It's not really about my dick. It's about this. Basically, there's a higher. Check this out. It's pretty funny. This is a fairly recent discovery too, but basically there's a hieroglyph. If you want, I'll send it to you. The picture of it is a picture of the ancient god Min with a giant erection, right? It's a hieroglyph in ancient Egypt, okay? And at the tip of this guy's dick, there's actually a sperm cell, right? Now they tell us these hieroglyphs are about 5,000 years old, and the people that I'm into will tell you these hieroglyphs are probably closer to like 50 to 100,000 years old. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that we only created an electron microscope like 160 years ago. In order to see a sperm cell, how did they do that? You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying. And again, I'm not looking for you to give me an answer. I'm just trying to get you to be like, is that true? Really? Like look into it for yourself. And you know what I'm saying? Like rather than just debunk it, consider what I'm saying. Again, I'm not trying to win. I like you. You're a good dude. I think you do great things. I'm just trying to push you more into the stuff that I'm into so you could see it for yourself.
I just need some evidence, man. I need to know what you're talking about, and I need some evidence for it.
Well, here's hard proof, pun intended. If you want, I'll send it to you. This picture of this ancient god Min with a giant erection. And again, they have a hieroglyph of a sperm cell. So how would they know what cells looked like 5,000 years ago before microscopes were created? That's kind of the same point I was making about the tetrahedrons and stuff in these ancient temples. These ancient temples are riddled with quantum physics and all this stuff that wasn't supposed to exist at the time. So that's why I'm just trying to basically whet your appetite for this stuff, because it's really fucking interesting when you know about it.
Okay.
It's why I don't. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want literal hard proof, but that's proof for you. Like, how were they able to see what a sperm? Like, how do they know what a sperm cell looked like before the electron microscopes were? Like thousands of years before these things were created. You see what I mean?
I'm pretty sure you can see sperm with a normal microscope. I could be wrong.
No. Regardless, we didn't create the microscope till like 160 years ago or something. The fact is that based on what they tell us, these things are 5,000 years old, and they're much older than that because they're trying to fit into the religious paradigm, which I'm totally against. What's it called? Hey, actually, off topic. Can I tell you, you're really against religion, right? Or you're not a fan? I think.
I'm a fan of true things, so it depends on what you mean by religion.
Well, here, let me it's like a half joke thing, but I think you'll appreciate it that I thought of recently. But you know how they tell us that Jesus Christ died for our sins and all this crap,
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about? Right, yeah. So they say that Jesus Christ died for our humanity's sins or whatever it is, right? So I ask these people, well, isn't Jesus Christ from heaven? And they all say, oh, yeah, Jesus from heaven, I'm like, oh, okay, he's either God or the Son of God. Most Christians don't even know or understand. So the point is they say that Jesus Christ, he sacrificed himself for our sins and he died. But then it's just like, if you know he's from heaven and he's going back to heaven and everybody knows this, well, how is that a sacrifice, That would be like me telling you, hey, Pat, listen, I got the winning lottery numbers. We're going to win 800 million, but you got to buy $5 in scratch-offs. Like, is that really a sacrifice? You know what I mean? I thought it was funny.
Okay, so I did some searching. Apparently, the statue that you're talking about...
statue. The Egyptian god Min with a giant erection.
Min, yeah. It was right next to a depiction of the ancient Egyptian fertility god. Min shows a sperm cell because it looks a bit phallic, thus proving that the ancient Egyptians had lost advanced ancient technologies that were capable of seeing sperm cells, something that shouldn't be possible for a Bronze Age civilization. In reality, this hieroglyph is actually a stylized depiction of a lasso, which can be transliterated into, it looks like the letter W. And then there's an issue with the video depicted with this hieroglyph being depicted as a picture rather than a character used in a written language. So,
do you believe that? That's what I mean. The explanations are ridiculous. Do you really think they would place a lasso at the tip of a guy's dick? Why would that be? It's like, why would that? It's the god of fertility. Why? Of fertility, meaning impregnating using sperm. Do you really believe? You're too smart for this. I know you don't believe that it's really it's a rope. Come on. First off,
dude,
the rope itself. Yeah.
You sound you sound like you disregard any evidence that contradicts anything that you've said here so far.
Well, the idea, dude, you really.
You just say you don't believe that.
No, I don't. That it's a rope. Like, really?
What's more plausible, that a civilization that hadn't invented microscopes knew what a sperm cell was, or that we've misconstrued a hieroglyph?
Huh? What?
What's more plausible, that we misunderstood a hieroglyph as something that looked like a sperm but actually was something else, or that an ancient civilization secretly invented microscopy, whatever.
I'm not saying that they secretly invented anything. I'm trying to suggest that they had higher technologies. Like, have you ever heard of the Baghdad battery or anything like that? Or have you seen the giant hieroglyphs of light bulbs that they had? Here's another example, actually, like, that's interesting. In the pyramids, right?
Dude, on everything we talk about, as soon as I start contradicting you and really confronting your evidence with counter evidence, you immediately move on to the next thing. Like, we can't get anywhere because I can't hold you in one place long enough to actually lock you down on something. You want to move on to the next thing now.
Yeah, because I'm giving you multiple examples, because you're rather than consider what I'm saying, you're just immediately trying to debate me and dismiss it. So I'm giving you countless examples, and I'm just trying to see, like, are you just going to really just, like, say, like, for example, the rope thing. First off, I bet you if I looked up a hieroglyph for rope, it wouldn't be what that looks like. Secondly, why would it be coming out of the Egyptian god of fertility's dick? Wouldn't it be sperm? Wouldn't that make more sense logically than a rope? Why would a rope be there?
I guess I'll start researching hieroglyphs or something. I don't know. It seems what's more no. What's more plausible, that we've misunderstood a hieroglyph, or that they developed microscopy?
Okay, well, actually, hold on. So then, what's it called? Who decided that was a rope? Because I can send you to Brian Forrester, Jimmy from Bright Insight, Josh Sergetson, if you want to talk to him about it. He'll get into this with you. We were discussing it. There's tons of people that'll tell you, yeah, the mainstream arguments are just lies, just like they lie about the conspiracies today. Like, you don't believe the news and half of what they say, right? Like, right?
It's more plausible that symbol meant just about anything, aside from a literal depiction of a sperm cell.
Coming out of the Egyptian god of fertility's dick with an erection. You really believe that? Like, I suggest you sound crazy, brother, right now. Like, the idea that it's not like a sperm, why wouldn't it be a sperm? Why would it be a rope? And also, too, when you look at the hieroglyph itself, it doesn't look like a rope. It's really small. How small is this rope? Like, and for what reason? Why would the Egyptian god, a god, need a fucking rope? Like, it's just kind of, you see what I'm saying? I just want you to look into this stuff more.
I mean, give me something to look into, man, and I will. But like, you give me one thing, and I find issues with it, and you move on to the next thing, and I find issues with it. So, like, give me your best thing. Figure out your best fucking thing. Give that to me. I'll look into it and let you know.
I'm giving you lots. Okay, so that's why I keep trying to give you more examples, because
so far nothing has held up. So give me your best thing.
What? But how did the rope not hold up? Just because Google? So you believe everything on Google?
That wasn't on Google.
What was it on?
That was on a linguistic subreddit.
Okay, from where?
Reddit. A linguistic subreddit.
Okay, well, either way, the fact is that, like, that's just one of the explanations, like, slaves built the pyramids, which if you take the time to really understand and study these things, there's no way slaves built these things. But again, like, it takes research, and you have to, like, really take the time and look into it. That's what I mean. Like, I'll give you an example, right? When somebody first put me onto this stuff, right, two of my friends came to me, and they read this book called The 12th Planet by Zachariah Sitchin, right? And I kind of did what you did, right? What you do, where they told me about this, like, there's no way that humans built the pyramids, this and that. And I didn't really like the sound of that. I was like, what do you mean there's no way that humans built the pyramids? So the logical part of my brain said, well, who's to say that maybe some guys at the time didn't come up with some ideas that were, again, like, of higher ideas, right? And then maybe, like, the king or the pharaoh at the time didn't like it, and they, like, stole the technology or whatever, right? So my two friends didn't really have a very good argument for me, because that is it is a decent argument, right? The difference between me and most people is that I picked up the book and read it myself, and then I was just like, you know what? They're totally right. They are lying to us about this stuff, because the amount of evidence that they've given me, I just couldn't lie to myself anymore. Like, there's no way what they're telling us about these things are true. But the thing is, you have to look into it and take the time and research and study it. Because again, if you're just going to go based off what, the first thing you find, it's a rope. Dude, it's definitely not a rope. Like, it just makes no sense there would even be a rope there. Like, why? These people did everything to a perfect extent regime. And here's another interesting point. It doesn't prove anything, but it's interesting, is the fact that In Egypt, they have hieroglyphs for absolutely everything that these people did. I mean, everything from brushing their teeth to orgies, you name it. They had hieroglyphs for these things. You know what's interesting? There's not one hieroglyph in all of Egypt on how they built the pyramids. Isn't that weird? None.
So I just look up the hieroglyph for rope, fiber, baskets, bags, etc. And one of them looks almost identical to the hieroglyph at the end of that dude's dick. And I sent you pictures of both. So if that's not valid counter evidence for you, I don't know what to tell you.
Why isn't it identical? Why is it not identical? Because the hieroglyphs were used, they had specific hieroglyphs for specific things. So that the argument doesn't hold up either. It looks kind of like, well, of course it's going to look kind of like it, but it's not the same thing. And again, you have to factor in, it's the Egyptian god of fertility's dick. Why would the god of fertility with a boner have a mini, it just doesn't make any sense, dude. Come on. I think I don't want this stuff to be true.
I'm sorry. Why wouldn't I don't want to get graphic in my description of ejaculate, but it could definitely be characterized as a rope, as ropes.
Why wouldn't they use the hieroglyph for rope then? You know, like, dude, I'm not trying to beat you. I'm just trying to.
They did use the hieroglyph for ropes. That's what I'm saying. No, they used like a stylized version of the hieroglyph I just sent you.
No, you said it's similar. It's not the same thing. So if it's not the actual hieroglyph for a rope, then it isn't that hieroglyph because they had specific hieroglyphs. Like, you know, the letters M and N look similar, but they're not the same thing. So there goes that argument, you know? Like, it's not the same thing. They use specific symbols for specific.
In these carvings in stone, they often stylized hieroglyphs. Like, and by stylized, I mean, you know, took a little artistic license to make them look prettier or more, I don't know, stylized.
They used color. No, they used colors. They had specific hieroglyphs for specific things, bro. Like, that's what I'm trying to explain.
Well, I remain unconvinced on this one. So give me your next best one.
All right, I'll keep going then. Okay, so then here's another interesting thing about the pyramids, for example, right? So they tell us that these ancient people, they didn't have technology that we did, or for like lighting and stuff or whatever. And every time you see a depiction of people going into the pyramids in movies and stuff like Indiana Jones and shit, they always use a torch. And they always explain how, like, in the ancient world that these people use torches. What's interesting, though, is that there's never been any torch residue found in any of these ancient structures. And the way the oxygen and all these things work, they wouldn't even be able to light torches in these things. So this is what I mean. Like, when you take the time and really study this stuff, it'll open up a whole new world of reality. And that's what I want to push you, Mr. Pat, into.
Okay, so you want me to believe that they had ancient technology that was more advanced than they should have been able to have. And from that knowledge, you want me to think that they gained that knowledge through spirit.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So for the sake of argument, let's say, just for the sake of argument, that you're right, that they had advanced technologies that we cannot explain. How, from that fact, do you draw the conclusion that this thing, spirit, has anything to do with it, and that spirit exists?
Well, for one, all they did was talk about spirit all over the ancient world, which is like, that was like their main focus of like life at the time, you know? And like, for example, not to get off topic, but just another point that's to add to this is that, like, you know that there's a giant Faustian pentagram above the White House, right? Like in the streets of Washington.
Is that the next thing you want to talk about to prove spirit, or did you just change the subject again?
No, I'm bringing it back to that. I'm just pointing out is that these people that you know, like, you know, in the shadows of power, they know about all this stuff that I'm talking about. You know what I mean? This is why I work with Mark, because like he covers all this type of stuff. You know what I mean? That's why these people have basically a part of reality hidden from us. The symbolic nature, it's not taught to us, but they use symbols all over the place. You know, and that's what I'm trying to explain is they know this stuff at the top. They just don't want us to believe it. They want us to think, oh, it's all bullshit, this and that. Yet if you look into these people's like lifestyles and like their buildings and stuff, they have all this crap. Take like the Grammys. I forget what it's called. There's that big archway like in front of the Grammys. They have Enlil and Enki, the Sumerian gods, like carved into there. Like why is that there? You know, like what's going on? Like, what do these people know? Like, what? Because I know about this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I know what they're up to. But the average person has no idea because they don't look into it. You know what I'm saying? So to bring it back to what we were talking about spirit is that these people that rule the world, like from the shadows of power, they know all this stuff, bro, and they put it in our face all the time. And like I said, that's my point about the White House. Like, why is there a giant satanic pentagram, a Faustian pentagram, a pentagram of Pax above the White House? You know what I'm saying? You know what a pentagram represents? Again, I'm not trying to be like, whoa, are you familiar with that or not? I'll explain.
So 3 minutes ago, the question was, let's say for the sake of argument that I believe that ancient cultures had advanced technology that they shouldn't have. How, from that fact, do you draw the conclusion that spirit exists and that spirit had anything to do with their advanced technology?
Because in order for them to have achieved this high technology, they would have to be at a much higher level of consciousness than we are now. And that's what I'm saying. And based on what they tell us about these ancient structures that these people couldn't have done what they've done, it doesn't make any sense based on what the mainstream is telling. So that's what I'm trying to explain, is that if you read like these people's accounts, they talk about spirit. They were obsessed with it. You know what I mean?
So what do you mean by higher level of consciousness?
Oh, like they just had a better understanding of reality than we do now. You know what I'm saying? Like they were more peaceful, like a golden age type of thing. Like, you know about the golden age, a much, much higher version of a golden age. But again, like these painters and these artists, like take Da Vinci.
How is that spiritual? That sounds just like that sounds just like advanced science. That doesn't seem spiritual.
Well, define spiritual. What do you mean by spiritual?
Dude, you came here to talk about spiritual, so why don't you define what you're talking about? I want to know what you're trying to convince me of. Because earlier, I think you know, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So there's something that people have always told me, random strangers, who have just come up to me and told me I have good energy, I have good spirit, this, and that. And again, I've met people that, you ever like meet someone and you don't like their energy and stuff like that? Like people you have senses to understand these things, just like how if somebody's staring at you and you can just kind of turn around and notice, like how do you explain that? Like according to the modern science, like that's just a coincidence, but everybody does it. You know what I'm saying? So what is that? The point is that they don't want us to know these things. That's why I was getting to the pentagram and like what that represents and stuff, because they're hiding they're hiding an understanding of, that we don't currently understand. Some of us do. Like that's what I'm trying to explain. Is that when you know this stuff, you can literally like read like their symbols and understand like a different message of what they're saying. That's what I'm trying to get to. That's why I brought up the pentagram, and that's why I asked if you knew what it symbolizes. Do you or not?
So I don't want to change subject until we get somewhere.
No,
so you're saying that these ancient humans had advanced technology because they were on a higher consciousness?
Yes, correct. That is what I'm saying.
So what is this higher consciousness?
Well, for example, I would say people in the truth, maybe this is the best example, but many people in the truth community, the ones that are more mature, more understanding, like maybe someone like Larkin Rose or something like that, who I hold good respect for, I would suggest he is at a higher level of consciousness than most people I come to on the street. You know what I mean? Because I've had discussions about him, about this stuff with him. And
okay, so you just mean smarter.
No, that's not what I mean, because I don't really consider myself that smart of a guy in terms of book smarts. However, in live debates, I'm good, man. You know what I mean? And it's just the point. It's just that, what's it called? Like, I don't mean more intelligent. There's different types of intelligence. Even the word intelligence, right, is broken into two parts. Intellect, which is the intellect quotient, which is actually the left part of the brain, which is what modern society represents as intellect. And then the gens part, all right, that's the second part of the word. That's why in Freemasonry there's a big G. It comes from the generic principle, which means to generate, right? So anyway, that's like the right side of the brain. Same thing with like the left eye of Horus, is that they root us into a left brain society. That's why everybody's kind of obsessed with science and math, and they don't want people to look into spirit. Like, I think I got off the topic there. I'm sorry. What was it again?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't want to digress, but you brought up the left right brain stuff, which I'm finding more and more evidence is mostly nonsense. I think it's just some colloquial stuff that's really it's caught on like a meme. I'm not sure how valid it actually is in classifying people, but I don't want to get too far off of what we were talking about. So I'm looking for a connection between ancient people and their technology and whatever it is you're calling spirit. And so the closest I've gotten is that you think that they're on a higher consciousness, but it doesn't mean that they're smarter. It means something else. that allows them to, I guess, be smarter to develop advanced technology when they shouldn't have been able to?
Let me explain, right? I consider myself someone at a pretty high level of consciousness, right? I don't consider myself like the smartest dude or anything like that, but I do consider myself someone high in spirit. One of the reasons that I come up with jokes 24/7 is because I'm more aware than most people. That's really what a joke is, that you notice something that most people don't, and you just phrase it in a way that's like, oh, that's interesting. I never noticed that before. You have to be at a high level of consciousness to do that. That's why most people don't really think of jokes, because, again, most people aren't really that high, or whatever. And I'm not saying this to, like, toot my own horn or anything like that. I just understand this is how it works. It comes through to everybody differently, you know what I mean? Like, for example, Mark this guy, like, he's like a photographic memory. This guy can stand up there for 9 hours and just fucking spit out information. I can't do that. So everybody has again, that's more of a left brain thing. I come up with jokes, that's more of a right brain thing. It's more like imaginative, Again, whether you do or don't believe that, like, it does seem to make sense or whatever. But, and again, in the ancient world, that they talked about this all the time. That's why the left eye of Horus is actually a symbol for the right brain, because the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body and vice versa. So in order to understand ancient Egypt, that's what the symbol means, is that you have to use your imagination, the right brain, because you're not going to understand it if you come at it from like a physical standpoint. And that's why they use that symbol all over Egypt.
So I want to point out, because we're back to the left-right brain stuff, that I just found a study from the University of Utah in 2013. They studied 1,000. They studied 1,000 people, and they scanned 7,000 areas of their brain on both sides to see if there was such a thing called a left brain person or a right brain person. And the conclusion was that it was more a figure of speech than an anatomically accurate description. So basically, that's not a thing.
You go by mainstream college studies?
Okay, if you don't value any evidence that contradicts you, then you will never be wrong.
You just gave me one piece of evidence. You didn't say, that was just one thing. I'm just asking you if you believe the mainstream, because I don't believe them about anything. I don't trust those motherfuckers at all. So if you give me more examples, I'll listen to you. But if you're just going to be like, I Googled it and they said they built it with stone, I'm not going to take that seriously. No, because I've spent the time and researched this stuff and know all about it, and I know they're lying about this. That's why I'm trying to get you to understand it, because if you take the time and look into it, you'll have a whole new world of reality open to you. And then maybe you'll be more like me. Not that you want that, but... because I consider you a very left-brain person, and I'm a very right-brain person. You're very rooted in physical. I need absolute physical proof, tangible proof. I want physical proof of spirit, which isn't a physical thing. And I'm here just kind of like with my imagination. Well, hey, you ever look at this? Isn't this kind of weird? Here's a joke. You see what I mean? So me and you are the perfect example of that. I'm much more of a right-brain guy, and you're much more of a left-brain guy. Actually, Mark talks about this all the time in his work, if you take the time to look into it.
Yeah, it's horseshit. Like, when I'm having these conversations with you, I am engaging in rational discussion and rational debate, attempting to find truth using reason, logic, and evidence. When I'm playing with my kids, I'm a different kind of person that isn't exactly looking for rational justifications for all his beliefs. I am both people. I have both sides of my brain, and they both function. It's just that when I'm evaluating a truth claim, such as the ones you're making, I have standards of evidence and standards for my beliefs, and I'm hoping that you meet them so that I can believe what you're saying.
Right, but I don't think some of your standards are so great, like the idea of a rope being attached to the Egyptian god's Min's dick. Like, you really believe that? I don't believe that for a second. I think they're just lying to us because they don't want us to realize, hey, they're lying to us about the ancient past, and they're just trying to dissuade people from looking into it. That's what I think. Yeah,
what I think is that it's way more likely that there was a troll that was having fun carving some shit into some stone and decided to put the symbol for rope. That's more plausible than they had microscopes and knew what a sperm was.
These hieroglyphs are lasered into these stones. How do you think? So you think they just like...
They are chiseled into the stones, not lasered. They didn't have lasers.
Not in the most ancient structures they are. In the more modern ones that tried to replicate. In the more modern ones that humans tried to replicate, yeah. But I'm talking about the ancient ones, the ones that replicate. Those ones, those are the ones with all the strange anomalies and stuff like that. That's what I'm talking about. Because again, we've tried to replicate these things through history. Like if you go to Baalbek, Lebanon, Oh no, I'm sorry. No, what's the Roman one? I forget what it's called. But there's this megalithic structure, right, that the Romans built some temple on. That this stone, I think it was like 200,000 tons. No, 200 tons or something like that. The stone, right? And above that, the generations that came later, they tried to emulate this building, and you just see how it got worse and worse through time. I forget the name, but I could send it to you if you want. But that's my point: is that we've degraded from spirit, and because we don't understand this now, that's why we're basically in shambles, and our lives are kind of fucked, and we're enslaved and all this type of stuff. So again, like this is what I'm trying to explain: is that people like Leonardo. You still there? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
my phone's. Yeah, I'm sorry, my phone's kind of low. It's going to die. I'm like 10%.
That's all right. Let's wrap up. Let's wrap up then.
Yeah, no, sure. Like I said, I enjoy talking to you because, like I said, it's like, to me, I really just want to convince you. Like, I want one day we need to hang out and I'll show you all of this stuff, man. And even if you think I'm crazy, I'm okay with it because I still think you do good work and you're a good person and try to do the right thing. So whether you think I'm crazy or not is fine. But anyway, so like, let me just get back to the what was I saying? The pentagram thing, right? Just because if we're going to wrap up soon, right?
Yeah, sure.
The reason I bring this stuff up is because, like I'm saying, these people, these occultists, these that rule us from the shadows, they know all the stuff that I'm talking about, and that's why they put these symbols all over the place. So the pentagram itself, like an upward star, a pointed star in the ancient world, represented the elements: earth, water, air, fire, right? Do you know what the fifth element is? You've heard of the movie, I'm sure, but are you familiar with what the fifth element actually is? Because it's based on a real thing.
What's the real thing?
Well, in the ancient world, they said it was spirit. So the high point of the star, which is why I explained how Earth density goes earth, water, air, fire, ether, which we can't even perceive with our own senses. And then you can get onto the what's his name, the scientist Orgon, who they murdered, and they took all of the stuff, who built a machine to tap into this. If you want, Wilhelm Reich, actually, Greg Papanikolaou is obsessed with that guy. His whole workout is based on that thing. But anyway, so anyway, a star at the high point of the star represents spirit, right? So the idea is when you invert the star, the pentagram, the satanic pentagram, it's the idea of killing spirit. It's thrusting it into the dirt. It's murdering spirit. You understand? So it's a symbolic thing. So the idea of above the White House, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get us more conformed, they're less individual-like. You understand? Like they want us to just fall into line. Because the less spirit you have, the less of an individual you are. You understand?
I don't need this symbology nonsense nor this spirit concept that you can't show me any evidence for to know that the White House is trying to subjugate us. Like that's obvious through their actions. I don't need symbols.
I didn't say you needed it. I'm just explaining why that's there, like what that actually means. You see what I'm saying? Like, for example, did you know there's a Nazi naval base? There's a naval base in San Diego in the shape of a swastika. If you look at it from like a helicopter, like they didn't accidentally do that. They're doing it for reasons, you know. Just because we may not understand the reason doesn't mean there's not a reason, you know. It's kind of like when people bring up like the meaning of life and stuff. Just because like we don't understand the meaning of life doesn't necessarily mean there isn't one. Everything has a purpose, you know.
Why do I care what shapes they draw? I care more about their actual actions.
Well, shapes have a purpose. It affects your subconscious mind. Like, why do you, like, for example...
Do you have any evidence that shapes affect my subconscious?
Yeah, absolutely. That gets into a lot of Freemasonic symbolism and stuff. Like, for example, right, at the base of every Freemasonic tracing board, there's a checkerboard floor, right? The checkerboard represents people who don't understand the dark from the light. They're on the board. They're pawns. They're being played. They're being played from up high, right? Again, also in nature, what's it called? Nature doesn't really make right angles in the way that like we make them. Like things don't break off in nature like that, right? So it's symbolically, it's a sign for humans about how like humans are basically like fucked up and this and that. But the point that I'm getting to is that there's a checkerboard wrapped around the police hats in all of Europe. Because the idea is that these people are trapped in base consciousness. They don't understand the dark from the light, and that's why they'll just take orders and kill people, you know? So these people are making fun of these people by wrapping this shit around their brain and stuff like that, you know? That's why I think you might find it interesting if you take the time to look into it, because it's some really wacky shit.
Well, even if I assume that it's true, it's nothing more than like, oh, well, that just makes something that they're already doing that's evil kind of fucked up, too.
Well, yeah, right. But right. So what's the point, though? I'm not following.
No, that's the point. Like, what's the point? Like, why all the hubbub about these symbols?
You asked what symbols mean, so that's an explanation of what a symbol means, or like why it would affect you, or something like that. Yeah, that's why. Like,
I still haven't seen evidence that a symbol affects my subconscious.
Okay, well, that's what I'm trying to give to you. Okay, so take like the signs that when you drive around, right? Take a yield sign, right? A yield sign is a downward shaped triangle, right, pointing downwards, right? In the ancient world, that's the symbol for a female, right? Or the feminine, what they call the sacred feminine or whatever. It's a female shape. It represents the vagina, et cetera, right? Yielding is something, it's a more like a passive, like slow down, calm down. It's not like a very striking thing, right? Where like at my gym where I go to on the machines, there's an upwards facing triangle, like don't slam the weights, you understand? So again, I can't, it's not easy for me to just prove this to you. You have to like look into this more and see the examples for yourself, because I'm only like, my brain is like limited. I can't see her and just this and give you 75 examples. But if you look into it, you probably will find 75 examples. And then it's on you, like, wait, is there some truth to this? Like, this is kind of interesting. That's how I got led down this path, because I was like, wow, there's an awful lot of coincidence here. I think there's some truth to this stuff. And then I looked into it and I'm like, yeah, there's totally a lot of truth to this stuff, you know?
No, I don't know. No. Just because some ancient civilizations used an upside down triangle to stand for female has, you need more evidence to link that to a yield sign.
Well, I just explained how basically yielding isn't like it's not considered like a masculine action. It's more of like a feminine thing, like slow down, take it easy. You understand? Like, you know, it's like a softer thing, like a woman. Whereas, like, don't slam the weights in an upwards triangle. That's more of like looked at as a masculine action, where you're slamming weights and stuff. Does that make sense to you or not?
I mean, you need evidence to connect all of these dots. You can't just say, look, they put the word yield on an upside down triangle, therefore there's a connection to like women. And
if you look into it, brother, there's loads of evidence. I'm just giving you off the top of my head all of this stuff, you know, as best as I can. And I'm also, like I said, I'm not somebody who has, you know, I can't spit it like someone like Mark can. I know, I understand it, but I can't spit it in the same way that he, or like Michael Desarion, or like, you know, there are other people that are like better at explaining this stuff to me. I'm not claiming to be the expert or anything, but that's what I'm saying. Is like, I'll gladly give you links to like Robert Sepper, what's his name, Matt LaCroix, Billy Carson. Like, these guys get into this in better depth than I do. Brian Forrester, you know. So like you said, like, you know, that's why, like, I think you should look into this stuff, because it's really interesting, man. And I think you're like closing yourself off to something that might really improve your life in a lot of ways. So I would hope that you consider what I'm saying and just like look into it for yourself, because you know, it'd be cool. I'll gladly, you know, like, you know, help you if you want with that stuff. But I find it fascinating.
Look, the fact that I'm willing to have these hour-long conversations proves that I'm not closed off to anything, but I am seeing a lack of evidence still. So I'm
giving you, just doing everything you can in your power to debunk it immediately, like the rope thing, which is just ridiculous, you know what I mean? Or the laser cut stones, or the giant Faustian pentagram above the White House, or, you know, I gave you lots of evidence. You just don't want to accept it. That's why I don't really, like, when you say you're looking for the truth, I almost believe you, but I think there's certain truths that you don't want to believe because it gets into spirit. And I think based on what you told me about your religious experience, about like what happened back in the day when you were a kid, I think you kind of closed off to that stuff. Again, I'm not trying to like offend you. You know,
what did I tell you about what happened when I was a kid? You might be thinking of a different person.
No, you told me you were in like some kind of like religious like covenant or something, and like you saw how brainwashed everyone was and how you saw through it and stuff, right? That was you, wasn't it? I'm almost positive.
I was not in a cult, no.
Not a cult, but you were in something you told. I don't remember exactly what it was, like a covenant or something like that. But what was it?
No, it was just it was a Christian church. I grew up Pentecostal Christian.
Oh, maybe I just heard the word. Maybe I just thought that word meant something. Okay, maybe I made a mistake. But yeah, so explain. Did you say you had a bad experience with religion or something?
Well, yeah, it's not true, and I was made to believe it as a child, and I agree. You know, it manipulates a lot of people. So yeah, I had a bad experience.
Yeah, no, fair enough. See, the difference is, the one thing I will say though is that I've never been a religionist, never in my life. I saw through that bullshit when I was a kid. See, what I've come to understand though is that a lot of these religious stories in the Bible and stuff like that, they're not told to us in a way that we can understand it. They're told in a symbolic way. And when you look at it from that point of view, which is why I'm trying to get you to look into symbology, it'll make more sense, you know? Because again, I'm not religious at all, but like take the Great Flood, right? That's in every fucking religious book in the fucking world. There's no way that didn't happen. Like all these people from all over the planet who had no contact with one another just happened to write about this thing at the same time. Like, no, that totally happened. You know what I mean? But these people,
I don't know what you mean, man.
You don't think the Great Flood happened? So much evidence for it. I mean, there's water weathering.
No, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. No, I this whole time I've just been asking you for evidence of the spirit, and all you're doing is like talking about people that did shit thousands of years ago that you don't think they could have done otherwise, and
what evidence
like
you're asking for physical evidence of a spiritual thing that isn't physical. So I'm trying to explain how people with strong spirit internally do things in the external world at higher levels because they have higher spirit. I don't think it's that complicated, you know?
I think you're just describing IQ. Like, there are some people that are smarter and they're able to accomplish more.
But again, I just explained how the IQ test itself isn't actually a measure of intelligence. It's only a measure of half of the brain. Like, that's even the word intelligence is broken into two parts. That's why I'm saying, look into it. Intelle and gens.
Just because the word is made up of two parts doesn't mean that the brain is broken up into two parts, and it doesn't mean, like, the etymology of language doesn't affect reality.
But I would suggest that it does. Like, you don't think like, for example, the word culture, right? The word culture is broken into cult. You don't think that was done intentionally? You don't think so? That just happened to work out that way? I don't think it happened to work out. I think that was intentionally done.
So,
I mean,
language,
think about it. It's right there in the word.
So math is a language that was created to describe reality. Math doesn't determine reality. So language in the same way was created by people to communicate with each other and to describe the things around us, not the other way around. Yeah. Like language doesn't create reality. Language describes reality.
But a culture is a cult, and it's your cult. So that is describing the word. Right there in the word, motherfucker. You know,
okay, not all cultures are cults. What are you talking about?
I would totally, yes, they are. Every single one of them that ever existed. Because culture goes against the individual. And that's the point. Like, that's what anarchists are kind of more people that are against cultures in general. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to explain is that any culture is a cult because we're all individuals. You understand? Because we're a herd animal, people kind of want to join like the herd because being like me or you or whatever for most people is too painful. But that's the point. A culture, how is it not a cult? It's a set of rules by the government. That's all it is. And the people, what they do in that area. It totally is a cult. How is that any different? That's why I look like a fucking washed up Backstreet Boy, but I act like a fucking clown because I never fell for that bullshit.
So a cult is something specific that has like 7 or 8 requirements to be considered a cult. And
well, by whose definition? You know, like again, like there are requirements for society, isn't there? Like there are rules and regulations. What's the difference? It's just on a grander scale. It's the same thing, just on a grander scale.
So if you get to change the definition of cult, then of course you're right, because you're also picking the definition of cult.
Well, again, I'm not trying to be right. I'm just like pointing out how, like, again, what's really the difference between a cult and a society? It's just a smaller version of the same thing with its rules and regulations and stuff. There's no difference. There's only the individual. So if you're going along with the culture and you're following the cultural thing, that those aren't your ideas. They're ideas that are given to you. That's what a cult is, isn't it? That's my point. This is why I like jokes, because these are all my own ideas, you know, and that's why I do that. Because I like that creative spiritual capacity of myself, and this is why I do what I do.
Well, I'm part of an anarcho-capitalist culture, which is a bunch of people that are individuals and respect each other as individuals. And I don't see anything cult-like about that.
Well, again, like I didn't like you're coming from the point of view of a cult in like the negative word. I'm just saying that like a culture and a cult aren't really that different because it's just a set of rules and structures created by like the system. You know what I mean? Again, I think you're also using like the word in a different way. But again, like I don't want to harp on this point. So
okay, fair enough. So my last point on language, and then I'll give you the last word, and then we can end it for tonight, is
Right.
that language is subjective. Language means only what you decide that it means. Words only mean what you decide that they mean. Many different
Not
people
according to you on the
believe
rope.
many different. What?
I said, not according to you on the rope. I was just trying to point out how you were trying to say that, oh, they use a different symbol. It's kind of like the rope, but it's not. So you just contradicted yourself, brother.
Nope. Like, you looked at that symbol and decided it meant a sperm. I looked at that symbol and looked up what the hieroglyphic definitions were on Wikipedia and found rope, which coincided with the definition I found in an article.
And
so,
then N aren't the same.
My point is that we all get to choose what all symbols mean. They don't have inherent meaning. Words do not have inherent objective meaning. We assign those meanings to them. That's my last point, so I'll give you the last word.
Okay, I kind of missed. I'm not sure what the point was, but well, either way, we can just pick it up another time if you want. But can you send me the dialogue? I'd like to re-listen to it and share it or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you think other people will benefit from this conversation, I can upload it to the channel. That's fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, please do. I absolutely want to share this with a lot of people. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you for the conversation. Did you have anything that you wanted to say? I'll give you the last word.
No, just other than, good talk. I always appreciate your point of view and everything. And when I find out more about what we're doing, I'll give you, I'll give you a lowdown. Maybe you want to be a part of it too. So I'll keep you posted on that end. All right.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.
Stay shirtless, baby. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye.